Hello, everyone. It is Peggy McColl, and we are just a few seconds away from 2 o'clock Eastern Time, and I'm delighted to be here with you right now. I am going to be opening up my PowerPoint presentation. I have a presentation for you, and we're going to go over there right now. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to walk you through the presentation that I promised. Sent out an invitation to all of you, inviting you to come in and find out what's possible as far as a breakthrough is concerned in your life, in your business, and how a book can actually enable you to have this kind of a breakthrough. And what I'll be doing is I'm going to be sharing with you many different examples of people from all over the world, different walks of life, different experiences, different education that have created a book, that have made a decision to do a book. And they did it for different reasons. They did it either to make a difference in the world, perhaps to make some money. Maybe it was both of those things. And I want to show you today, like really have you open up your mind to show you some proven results that I've achieved, some of my clients have achieved, and what some others have achieved that may inspire you to make a new decision about your life. All right, so if that's of interest to you, it's great. I'm happy to have you guys here. Just want to check to see, we have the chat box open there. We have the chat roll open. So if you are on this webinar live and you do have a question for me, I'm absolutely open to taking questions after I deliver my presentation. So what you may want to do is watch the entire presentation. If you find that I have not addressed the question that you would love for me to address, then wait till after I deliver the content, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. All right, sound good to you? Okay, great. So we have a very simple agenda today, and that is to really encourage you to do something today, to take some movement where there may have been some hesitation. Maybe you've thought about this idea before, or maybe you haven't thought about it, but really encourage you to do something that's going to have you moving in the right direction and just show you how it's actually easier than you think to create a book or to create products and programs and get them out there in the world and make a big difference. I'll talk about my own story as well, and then inspire you. Really why I believe I've been put on this earth is to inspire people, to inspire you to make a decision today that your future self is going to say thank you for. You know, as I walk around my own home, and my husband and I own two homes. We have one on the water, and we have our main one in town, and we live a very blessed life. And I wasn't raised in abundance. I wasn't raised with entrepreneurial parents. My parents didn't have any money. If anything, I would consider our family as poor. I mean, we were barely scraping by just for my parents to put food on the table. My father was a janitor. My mother worked at a factory. We lived in a 600 square foot home, and there were 4 kids. So 6 of us were living in the 600 square foot home. My mom, my dad, my 2 brothers, and my sister and I. And it was tough. I mean, tough times. And that is not the way I live my life. And I absolutely know with certainty the reason where my life really took off, or the reason why my life really took off and where it really took off, was once I became an author. And I have not looked back since then. So I want to encourage you to maybe take some action as well. So Susanna, this is a picture of Susanna. If you're seeing her sitting in this deck chair here, she's actually sitting on our swim platform at my waterfront home. And Susanna I had met just a couple months ago, actually. And I've never met her before. And she came up to me and she said, I want to write a book, and I want to write it in 7 days. And my goal is to go home. She was in Toronto at the time. And she said, my goal is to go back to Australia. She lives in Melbourne as an author. And first question was, can it be done? And I said, absolutely, when you have the right guidance. So I actually worked with Susanna in a private mentoring capacity. And she ended up coming up and staying at my waterfront home, and she got her book done in a week. And it really was, I can't take the credit for her writing the book, but where I will take the credit for is really guiding her on what she needed to do, when she needed to do it, in what order, and she created a phenomenal piece of work. And I want to share that with you because sometimes people think it takes years to write a book, or I could just wait and get it done some other time. And I'll tell you, you decide to wait, or maybe one day or someday I'll, that island out in the middle of nowhere that you're going to get it done. It's not going to get done. You absolutely have to make a commitment. And when you do, you'll be amazed what you can accomplish. When I drove Susanna to the train station, it had been just a few days that we had been working together and her book was written. And she had tears in her eyes talking about how thrilled she was and how she really felt like a very, very different person. And it can have that impact. I often tell my authors that the impact that you writing your book and following through has on you personally, just on your confidence level, is incredible. Just cause you to feel a great sense of accomplishment. So what I'm committed to you today, since you've invested the time to be here with me and I'm investing the time to share with you this knowledge, is that I'm committed to give you the best that I can from, I've got 13 books out there so far. And I have been down the road of self-publishing and publishing. I've written a number of my books. I've taken courses and taken the content and created books from that. I've recorded content of books. I've taken blogs and pulled it into books. I sat down one Sunday and I created a book called 99 Things You Wish You Knew Before Writing on the Internet. I've been on the New York Times bestseller list. My books are in 37 languages, and I actually took a photo of part of my bookshelf just to show you. And they're sold, last I counted, was in over 82 countries. It's probably more by now. And so I only share that with you because I've been an author for a couple decades now. I've had my business going for almost 3 decades. I've been studying personal and professional health for almost 4 decades. I really know what I'm doing. And why I share that is when I first began with that whole idea, I'm going to write a book, I was really lost. I had no clue what to do, nor did I have an understanding of what it would take to be a successful author. And it was like trying to work around in the dark, when you can't see, it's kind of hard, right? You end up bumping into furniture and tripping over things. And that's exactly what happened. I almost went broke, actually, when I wrote my first book. And that it was not a fun experience whatsoever. I mean, I was financially struggling and I did not enjoy that at all. My intention was to create a book that I could bring out to the world to help other people. It wasn't to go broke in the process. So my first book was this book called On Being the Creator of Your Destiny. And I wrote it myself. I self-published this book and I brought it to the marketplace. And I had an ignorant assumption that if you write a book, the buyers will come. Well, let me tell you this, because I think it's really important that you know this, and you're going to be thanking me for telling you this. That's not the case. You can write the best book on the planet, but unless you know how to market it, it will mean nothing. And so this was the book that I wrote that I found myself in this very uncomfortable, financially stressed position that until I decided to invest in learning how to market effectively a book, then that's when things really changed, like completely changed. Everything changed for me because I dedicated myself to learning what was required in order to be a success. So I started marketing this book online. And I did that because I was a single mother at the time. And I don't know if any of you are parents, mothers, children, or well, you are a child of someone else. But here's one thing that I know from my own experience. My son, my family is my priority number one. And I would do anything for them as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral. And I felt a very strong obligation to take care of my son. And I decided I'm going to find a way. One way or another, I'm going to find a way. And I found mentors that would help me. I learned from the absolute best in the business because I wanted to get results. And when I started marketing my books, I just started selling books to the tunes of hundreds and thousands of books. And that's when things really took off. And I just assumed everybody was getting that kind of results. My second book that I came out with was 8 Proven Secrets to Smart Success. And this book was actually created from a course that I had been delivering online. And I created that course online after I started marketing my book online because I realized that people are hungry. They're hungry for information. And out of the trillions of dollars annually that is being conducted online every year, information is one of the top 7 things that people purchase. People are looking for information, courses, programs. And so I created a program and I started to deliver it called 8 Proven Secrets to Smart Success. And as a result of that, I started to generate tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. And within a very short period of time, financially, I had turned things around. And then I had another book. So I took the content of a course, I put it into a book, and then I released that book. I did the same thing with a millionaire author, took content from a course that I'd been delivering and created a book. So you don't even have to write the book. And I didn't write either one of these 2 books. I basically took course content that I'd been delivering and put the transcripts from the course content, had an editor edit it, and that's how I created those books. Darn Easy was a book that I was teaching a course with my good friend, Brian Proctor. And Brian Proctor is the son of Bob Proctor. And Bob is also a friend of mine, and he's my mentor and has been for almost 40 years. And Brian and I decided to do a book together called Darn Easy. So what we did, rather than sitting down and writing the book, was Brian and I put together a program. We delivered the program online. We generated revenue as a result of that. And as a result of delivering the program online, we recorded everything. We had it transcribed. And this became a book that was purchased by McGraw-Hill. They bought the rights to this book. We were paid in advance for this book. It's out in hardcover. And I highly recommend this book, by the way. But why I'm sharing that example with you is, like, some people will tell me, like, I've worked with thousands of authors, and sometimes they'll tell me, well, Peggy, I'm just not a good writer. And then I'll say, I'm not a good writer. They're like, what? Really? You don't have to be a good writer. Or sometimes people just don't feel that they have the time to sit down and write it. It's like, well, you don't have to sit down and write it. I mean, there's so many ways. I teach multiple ways to actually get to the same destination, and that's you having a book. So I'm sharing with you right now, here's some ideas. Now, what's fascinating and what's wonderful about approaching your book in this way is that you can make money by creating the content and selling it, and then you can actually create the book as a result of that. Here's the book that I mentioned that I took some blog content. I sat down one Sunday. I got up early in the morning and I just started writing. And I made a decision I would get this book done before the day was over, before the clock struck midnight. And I believe it was around 9 p.m. the Sunday evening that I actually finished the content for the book. And then I sent it over to an editor to edit it, fix the grammar, fix the spelling, clean it up, because it was probably a pretty sloppy book. But that's the blessing of editors on this planet. You don't have to be a great writer. You don't even have to know structure, although I can teach you all of that now that I know what I know. And you can create a book. And this was a book that a publisher out of Montreal had asked me to produce. And they never gave me a due date until about 2 weeks before they decided they wanted it. And then they called me and said, hey, we need that book in 2 weeks. So I did it quickly. Now, this is a book that is something I'm very familiar with. I've been marketing online now for many years and creating great success. So I wanted to help people understand, what do you really need to know before you put a website up? Because, if I had $1 for everybody who told me that they put a website up and nothing's happening, or they launched a book and nothing's happening because they didn't have the right guidance. You absolutely must have the right guidance, or else you'll end up struggling, end up spending money, blowing money on wasted things that don't result in anything. And of course, what you're really looking for is to get results, and to do so from the comfort of your home. Here's another book. This is a book that I wrote. Actually, I didn't write any of it. Now that I think about it, somebody wrote my story for me. It's a ghostwriter wrote my section, but this is multiple stories from many different contributing authors sharing their stories of how they created extraordinary results. So we called it Destinies, with the subtitle Motivating Stories from Ordinary People Who Created Extraordinary Results. This type of book is called a collaborative book. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you've even been in one. Chicken Soup for the Soul is a collaborative book. And what's fascinating about that model is that you can actually create books and release books, and you can, excuse me, you can charge people to be in the book, and you can also create a book relatively quickly. But here's what you really need to watch out for is the, excuse me, the quality of the stories that are in it. These 4 books, Your Destiny Switch, 21 Distinctions of Wealth, The One Thing, and Viral Explosions, all were, excuse me, just one sec. Sorry about that. All were published by publishing houses. Your Destiny Switch, 21 Distinctions of Wealth, and The One Thing were all, I received advances, over 6 figures in advances for these books. The first 3 books are published by Hay House. Viral Explosions is published by a business publisher called Career Press. But none of these books I actually wrote myself. My name's on it. You can see my name's on the cover. They are my books. They're my ideas, my strategies, my stories. But I hired a ghostwriter to write these books. And that's another option that you can go into. But remember what I said earlier. Writing the book is not where the success actually occurs. It's in the marketing of the book. Now, what I learned very early in the game, meaning when I released my first book, was the most valuable lesson that I have learned since I became an author. And it is the following. An author's responsibility to write the book and complete that book is 5% of their responsibility. The opportunity or the author's responsibility to get sales is in the marketing, and that's 95% of an author's success. So you've got to become really good at marketing. You must know what's required to market and promote your books, because if you don't, you're going to go through all that experience of writing the book and creating the book, and you won't have any book sales. Now, there's been some stats that declare that 93% of all books that are ever written and published or self-published will never sell more than 500 copies. So that means that 7% of all books that are released will sell more than 500 copies. And out of that, there's a fraction that are wildly successful, the top 3%. So what is it that's causing these top 3%? Is it magic? Is it some kind of a secret recipe? Well, I think it starts with, one, having a good book. It doesn't even have to be a great book, but being open and willing to do marketing. That's what's absolutely essential. Now, when I decided to be an author, I made a decision that I would be a New York Times bestselling author. So when Hay House picked up the rights to a book that I wrote called Your Destiny Switch, I made a very committed decision. And that decision was this book would become a New York Times bestseller. And I believe a great place to start as it relates to success is making a committed decision. You see, if I had never made that decision to become a New York Times bestselling author, would I have become a New York Times bestselling author? Very likely not. But because I did make the decision, because I committed myself, because I did already know what was required to launch an effective marketing strategy for a book, and I did, my book made it on the New York Times bestseller list and made it to be the #2 book in the world, the #2 best-selling book in the world at that time, right behind a book called Harry Potter. Excuse me. So this is an example of what's possible when you get committed, regardless of whether your name is known out there or not, whether you've had another book out there or not, no matter where you live in the world. You see, some people believe that they have to live in the United States to be a New York Times bestseller, or that they have to have a certain credibility already before they become a New York Times bestselling author. That's not true. If you have a book and it's published and it's available and it's in the English language, you can become a New York Times bestselling author. One of the things that I found is after I started getting this traction with my own books, other authors, many other, hundreds of authors started contacting me, asking me to teach them, asking me to show them. But what surprised me the most was when people like Neil Donald Walsh and Marianne Williamson and Robin Sharma and Gay Hendricks and Wayne Dyer and Marcy Shimoff and Greg Braden and Richard Carlson and Debbie Ford, just to name a few. I mean, I've had many very successful authors hire me to help them. But what surprised me was that why are they contacting me? They've already had success. I remember Robin Sharma was actually one of my very first clients, and he had released a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and it was a big hit, mega hit book. and he had released a second book called The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. And that's when he called me, because that book simply wasn't selling. And so he needed help to get it boosted and selling and up the charts. So he hired me to help him. I brought that book right up to the top of the charts by knowing what to do. And that led to all these other authors calling me. Neale Donald Walsch, when I helped him launch one of his books, he had called me. Neale Donald Walsch had contacted me when he was ready to release the 10th book in the Conversations with God book series. And I knew who Neale Donald Walsch was. He had sold millions of books. He was very famous, very well-known author. And when he contacted me and he said, in his email, he said, how does one get the great Peggy McColl to help them with their book? I understand you've helped my friends Marianne Williamson and Wayne Dyer and Debbie Ford. I want you to help me. He said, it's the most important book in the series. And it was a book called Home with God. So I said, well, I'd be happy to help you. So I helped Neale Donald Walsch, got that book launched. And he sent me a note after the book had been released. And the note said, I am so grateful for the success of my book. It went straight up the charts, #1 on Amazon, #1 on Barnes & Noble, like #1 in the world. And he said, I'm very clear on what is behind it, what made that happen. He said, in 2 words, it's Peggy McColl. And you know, why I'm sharing this with you is the value in knowing what to do. You see, there's a lot of people that they want success, but they have no idea what they should do, or how do I do it, or what do I do, where do I start, what do I do next? And it's so important to know what to do next. And many authors, just like the ones that we're seeing here on the screen, Debbie and Richard and Greg, they all wrote their books because they wanted to make a difference in the world. And I've worked with fiction authors as well. This is not only for nonfiction authors. I've worked with fiction authors, I've worked with nonfiction authors, and I'll give you a couple examples of that in a minute. But every one of these authors that you're seeing on the screen, I've helped to some degree to get their book on the New York Times bestseller list. And when you look at the stats of the possibility of that happening, I mean, it's actually remarkable to do it, because many of the books that are on the New York Times bestseller list stay on the New York Times bestseller list. They've created momentum. Right? It's called the tipping point. And once books get to the tipping point, which is a wonderful thing, it's a wonderful place to be, it's hard to get them off the charts so that you can get your book on the charts. But it's absolutely possible. That's what I want you to really open up your consciousness to. This is possible. It is possible. It doesn't even matter if you're self-publishing your book, it's possible. Here's another author that I work with. She was originally from Cambodia, and she now lives in New Zealand. And she wanted to do a book, but had no idea how to do it. She tried and just couldn't get there. And finally, she contacted me and we worked together. And she took my program, went through my program. She actually hired me for some private mentoring as well. And she created her book called The Wisdom Seeker: Finding the Seed of Advantage in the Khmer Rouge. And she went through what some people would consider hell. I mean, it was an absolutely horrific scene or life experience that Pizé had. But now she's created this wonderful book. And I know while working with her, in the experience of her writing it, she had such tremendous growth. It's a tremendous growth experience. And that is a wonderful advantage. The fact that you sit down, of course, it's a great feeling of accomplishment, but when you're sitting down and you're looking to share something, share some knowledge, share an experience, share some strategies, you cannot help but have a growth experience in that experience. Here's another lady that I was blessed to work with. This lady, Jennifer, saw me speak at a conference, and I got back and she sent me an email and she said, Peggy, I'd like to write a book and I want to write it, get it published, or self-publish it, and I want to make it a bestseller in the next 60 days. She was going back to another conference and she wanted to attend this conference, which was 60 days out, as a best-selling author. So she sent me an email and she said, is it possible? And I said, yes, it's possible when you have the right guidance. So again, I worked with her and we worked together. I helped her write her book. She wrote her book in 8 days. She wrote almost a chapter a day, a little bit more than a chapter a day. The book was done. She's actually a very gifted writer. And even if she wasn't, you could get a gifted editor to clean it up. but she was a great writer. So she wrote very effectively and then had it edited. She got the cover designed. I gave her the recommendations to where to go to get that done. And within a couple of weeks, her book was available online. And approximately a month and a half after that, she made her book an international bestseller. So true to what she said as an intention, and by following some guidance, and she invested in herself, she created that as one of her major accomplishments. And you know what I love about that, and I think you would too, is that when you become a best-selling author, whether it's international best-selling author or New York Times best-selling author, that is an accomplishment that you own forever. Nobody can take it away from you. It's like if you won a medal in the Olympics and you're a silver medal winner in the 100-meter backstroke, you are always going to be a medalist, right? An Olympian medal winner. And so it's the same thing with the books. When you achieve that as a success, you can put it on your business cards, you can have it on your website, you can put it on the next cover of your book. It's just a wonderful thing. Now here's a book that was written by a young man, the age of 5. His name is Destin Gregory. And Destin Gregory, I actually met through his father, Eric. And Destin wrote a book called The Day I Met Bob, a 5-year-old's introduction to goals. And it's a really, really cute story. There's a picture of Eric and Destin on the back cover of this book. And Eric was a client of mine, went through my program, and his son actually was inspired to write this book. And he and his son worked on this book. It is an adorable book. So I'm sharing it with you because, first of all, I think it's cute. It's a great example, but also to show you that if a 5-year-old can do it, anybody can do it, right? Like I have worked with a number of kids as well. And my clients, you know, and I'm working with my clients quite often, they get their kids to write a book. And it's a really fun thing to do with children. Jason Fladlin is a gentleman that I started working with earlier this year, in May actually of this year. And this guy has earned millions of dollars, and he teaches people how to sell during webinars. And I actually gave him the name of his book, the title of his book. And his book is coming out, excuse me, it's called One Too Many, The Secret to Webinar Success. You see, Jason has generated $100 million by selling during webinars. Now, you would think that anyone who's accomplished that kind of success using a strategy that anyone can use from the comfort of their home, people want to know what their ideas are. People want to know where's their thinking, what's their process. And so Jason decided he was going to do his book. And so he sent me this text, and I did a screen capture of it. He said, as my book gets ready to go to print, just wanted to say thank you again. I wanted to write a book for the last 7 years and never finished. You got me to do the whole thing in 3 weeks, and it was fun. I've already gotten business from this book just by showing the manuscript to a few people. I'll probably end up with a 6-figure contract from the book before the typos have even been fixed. And what's fascinating about this is, you know, I think back to when I started working with Jason, and we had our first call together, and he started to share with me how he felt it was going to be hard. And I said, Jason, it's only going to be hard if you think it's going to be hard. It's like, oh my goodness, you're so right. And it wasn't that I was teaching him anything he didn't already know. He was just blocked in his own way. He couldn't see what was stopping him or preventing him. And I said, listen, let's make it fun. We're going to set some commitments. You're going to be responsible for getting back to me. And he was in a private mentoring capacity. And he also had access to my program. And he set the deadline. He's going to get the book done in 3 weeks. And he stayed accountable, and he got it done. And it's a wonderful book. I mean, yeah, there's some spelling errors in there or whatever, but I'm certain his publisher and editor is going to clean that up. Here's another example of an author who wrote a book, and instead of publishing the book and bringing it out to the world, she decided to just give it away. And she was a consultant and worked in a specialized market. And she gave the book away. And as a result, 100 clients hired her, and she generated $2 million in consulting fees as a result. You see, as my friend Bob Proctor says, even if your book stinks, you should still write your book, because a book is an instant credibility builder. instantly, as you write your book, people will think or assume, wow, that person must be an expert. If if they've written a book, they must know what they're talking about, even if people don't read it. So it's valuable if you're in business or thinking about having a business. This is valuable for anyone who's doing online business or speaking. It is an incredibly valuable thing to do. Like when I'm sitting on a plane, I'm traveling somewhere and the person beside me, says, so what do you do? And it's like, I'm an author, and I hand them my card, and my card says New York Times bestselling author before my name. They're like, whoa. And it happens pretty much every time, not once or not once in a while. Or you say to people, well, what do you do? Yeah, I'm an author. Oh, tell me about that. What have you written? Last night I received a phone call from the contractor, the general contractor who's doing some renovations at our home. And he called me, and of course, we hired him to do the renovations. We got him on contract, and he wasn't really familiar with what I did, but he could see my husband's out golfing, and my husband's retired, living this wonderful life. And, we've got this 4-car garage, and he sees our boats and our cars and everything else and our beautiful home. And he was kind of wondering, like, what does Peggy do anyways? And so he asked one of our neighbors, not a neighbor here at our home, our neighbor at our waterfront place, because he also knows that we have a waterfront home. And he asked our neighbor over there, what does she do? And so our neighbor told him what I do. And he called me last night and he said, my son, who's now in his early 20s, wants to start a business online. But he realized that he needs to, because he feels like he's got to build his credibility. He's young and he's had a lot of experience. So he wants to write a book. And so he asked me, he said, can you, give me some guidance or tell him where to go? And I said, sure, I've got a program, I can help him in a couple different capacities. And so here's a young man who recognizes the value of building your credibility, building your brand. Yes, we're in an information world right now where people are online, they're looking for information, they're gathering information. And what really causes one individual or one entrepreneur or one business person to stand out from the rest? It's going to be their credibility. And a book is an instant credibility builder. It's something that you can definitely build. Anik Singhal is actually a gentleman that I've met through Brian Proctor, who's a really good friend of mine. And Anik has had me come and speak at a number of his different events. And when I was speaking at his events, I said, Anik, where's your book? And he's like, oh, I know. I've wanted to do a book for a while. It's like, what the heck? Like, you are in your own way, my friend. And of course, Anik was already doing really, really well. But I know Anik likes to serve the world and likes to expand and find ways to grow his business. So I helped Anik. I gave him the mentorship and the guidance to get this book done called The Circle of Profit. And when he released it in a rather unique way. When he released this book, he actually generated $11.1 million when he released the book. Now, how he did that was by including in the book an opportunity for people to come and take a look at an information session that he did online, which is known as a webinar. And when people came to watch the webinar, he invited them to enroll in his program. And that's how he generated the $11.1 million by releasing a book. And so it can absolutely be a credibility builder. It can be a confidence builder. It can be something that you add to your business card. It could be something that produces some revenue from book sales, but it could be also something that could be used to generate significant revenue. I have another client. She's a graduate of my author program by the name of Nancy Tillman, and she's a children's book author. Sometimes people ask me, well, will your strategies work with my book? And my answer to that question is there an audience for your book? And if there's an audience for your book, then absolutely it'll work. What I teach is online marketing that can be used for books, it can be used for webinars, it can be used for programs, live events, essentially anything. And so Nancy Tillman came to me because she had self-published this beautiful children's book called On the Night You Were Born. And I introduced her to my agent, my literary agent, who ended up getting a contract with a publisher for Nancy. And now Nancy has sold over 5 million copies. And I know the contract that my literary agent, Kathy, secured for Nancy was a $250,000 advance for the first. And she's done many, many, many contracts, agreements with publishing houses. So Nancy's sitting on pretty nice, nice, easy street here with this many book sales to her name. Here's another one of my clients, Mick Peterson. Mick, I met when he signed up for my program just a few years ago, and he wrote a book called Stella and the Timekeepers. And the picture on the right-hand side is Mick with Phil Goldfine. And Phil Goldfine is a Hollywood producer. As a matter of fact, he's produced more movies this year than any other producer in Hollywood. And he has his office right on Universal Studios. I've been to his office actually a number of times. And Mick's book ended up in the hands of one of the readers from Phil Goldfine's production company. And the reader loved the book. And Mick self-published the book, launched the book, made it a bestseller. Phil Goldfine heard about it and has optioned the rights, has bought the rights for the movie. And now Mick has a publisher for the book who's already bought the rights. He's actually rewriting it. He's doing an entire trilogy of the book. That's going to be a subsequent book, 2 more books actually, 3 in total. And he will be re-releasing a book called Stella next year, and they're making a movie out of it. And Phil and Mick's vision for this, and this came from Phil Goldfine himself, is that this will be bigger than Harry Potter. Can you imagine? Bigger than Harry Potter. That's what we call dreams coming true kind of material. Here's another example of an author who was, in her late 50s, early 60s. She wanted to get a book done, had no idea, how to get a publisher, tried to get a publisher, couldn't get one. Then she took my program, launched her book, made it a bestseller, and she got a $2.4 million publishing deal. And she was an author that was completely unknown, and it was for her first book. Now, why did that happen? That happened because Elle Newmark learned how to effectively market her book. And what publishers love and are only willing to look at are authors that have demonstrated that they know how to market and that they're willing to launch a proven marketing strategy. And they also want a great book. And Elle Newmark happened to have been a great writer as well. So something else that's possible. But what happens is that we're looking at these stories, right? And we're seeing people that have taken action. And as you know, if you look at any success stories, that's really what we're evaluating, is people that get results are people that don't make excuses and they take action. But there's, in general, most people are good at making money or making excuses. And very few are actually really good at making money, but they are mutually exclusive, and you can't be good at both. You got to pick one. So I'm going to ask you right now, you're on here, you're watching this, you've signed up, you joined. Which one do you pick? Do you want to make some money, or you want to make some excuses? And that's what I absolutely love helping people do, is make money and get rid of the excuses so that they're not there. So if making money is something you want to do, you want to follow through. Now that my friend Wayne Dyer, who has passed on now, said this, he said, don't die with the music still in you. And that was something that he felt compelled just in his own life. That was what really drove him to share his knowledge and his ideas in all of his wonderful books that he's created. So whether you have an idea for a fiction book, whether you have an idea for a children's book, whether you have an idea for a business book, whether you have an idea for some kind of a nonfiction book, it's time to do it. Don't let that idea just sit there, not even percolating, but placed on the back burner. It's time to resuscitate it. There's no such thing as accidents. Like, you're here, you're watching this, there's a really good reason for that. So now imagine, just let's play this game for a moment. Let's just imagine, just close your eyes just for a moment. Just imagine that you've written your book. You've completed your book. It's done. It's a bestseller. And you're celebrating, right? Your family is with you. They're around you. They're patting you on the back. You can hear them saying, way to go, or wow, what an accomplishment. You can see the money sitting in your bank account. You can see what it's done for your career. You feel such a great elation, such a great sense of accomplishment because you've done this. Just imagine what that feels like. What we're doing is we're just stepping into the future here. We're just stepping in the future and we're playing a game, if you will. Life is a game. It's a game of what if. We've got every opportunity, every minute to create whatever we desire. I had someone ask me the other day, was it always a goal of yours to become an author? No, it wasn't it wasn't a little girl sitting there going, one day I'm going to grow up and be an author. It wasn't until I got to a point where I decided I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to make a positive contribution. I wanted to help people in layman's terms understand how to get results. That's when I decided that I'm going to make a commitment, that I'm going to take the action. I will do whatever it takes to get the results. And as a result, my life has never been the same. And I know for many authors that I've worked with that have followed through, it's the same thing. So just think about what impact could finishing a book, your book, have, and of course, making it a bestseller, have on your life, or have on your business, or have on the business that you're looking to start, right? What kind of a positive impact could that have on your life? I want you to really think about that right now and just see what kind of an impact it can have. You're getting ready to be introduced. You're speaking at a dinner event, or there's a charity event. You've been hired to be their keynote speaker, or you're setting up an online presence and your book is there and you're giving it away to your clients as a welcome gift for signing on to your program. It can have a big impact. For me personally, I've generated millions of dollars in profitable revenue. And remember, when I started, I was a single mom. I'm married now, happily married to my husband, Denis. And my husband, just want to tell you a little story here. My husband, not even a year after we were married, I think it was about 6 months after we were married, he worked for the Canadian government, the Department of National Defense. He was in the military. And Denis used to fly the prime minister. He was a pilot, kind of like Air Force One in the United States. And Denis had gone to work one day, and whenever Denis went to work, he wouldn't just go to work and put in his hours and come home. He'd get on an airplane and fly somewhere, right? Fly the prime minister somewhere. And sometimes he'd be gone for a week or two or several days. And this one day he went to work and he called me from the squadron and he said, honey, he says, I got to work today and the commanding officer called me in and I've been commissioned to go to Afghanistan. I got to tell you something. My husband at the time was like 47 years of age or 48 years of age. And I was like, what? Like, I was stunned. I was really stunned. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was really surprised. And so was he. He was really surprised as well. And he said, they need someone with my qualifications and I've got to go. And it's a 6 month. It's not like I'm going on for a week, honey. I'm going for 6 months. And it's like, wow. And I said, how do you feel about that? And he goes, well, I don't know. It's kind of shock, right? It's sinking in. And I said to him, well, what are your options? And he said, my options. And in his mind, he didn't think there were any options. I said, there's always options. And he said, well, I guess I could retire or I can go. And I said, well, why don't you retire? He goes, well, what about my income? I said, you don't need to worry about your income. I got a business. It's going. Well, you sure? And so he went away on his trip and he came back home and we sat down and really talked about it. And we decided he'd retire. And he did. He retired. It was 10 years ago. Matter of fact, today, as you and I are sitting here, my husband is out on a golf course in Orlando, Florida on the Disney property. He's golfing right now. He golfs, he plays hockey, he travels with me when I travel. And that's the kind of impact that it's had on our lives. And he didn't go to Afghanistan after all. So now's the time. Like, I absolutely believe now is the time. If you're feeling an inkling to do something, let me share with you how I can show you the way, how I can really guide you through this process of taking your life to another level. Now, it is true that what I'm sharing with you, the examples that I'm sharing with you, have maybe even shifted some thinking on how this potentially could be valuable for you. It's certainly been valuable for others. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, for sure. And You can get everything you need to know because this is what I do. I help people. I help people write their book. I help them make their books bestsellers, and I help them to live a wonderful lifestyle doing work that's meaningful. So here's what I have as far as an invitation for you, that we can go on a journey together, and whether it's just making an impact, writing your book, making some money, we can do all of that. So the invitation is for a program called the Book Writers Program. And it is essentially you writing your book in multiple ways, because there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, making it a bestseller, whether it's a New York Times bestseller or international bestseller, and building a profitable business, a profitable revenue producing business, whether you're working part-time or full-time. It really is up to you. So we're going to go through all the writing process, how to do research, how do you get a killer cover, like a cover that actually has people buying the book just because of the cover, how you can work on specific deadlines, how you can get your book done quickly if that's what you want to do, how easy it is to get endorsements. And if you want to get your book picked up by a publisher, what's required for that? How do you get your book into multiple languages? As I said, mine's in 37. And then how do you get past writer blocks and etc. And then we're going to get into twice a month, you will have access to me. We do these live open Q&A calls where I get on the phone with my participants, everyone that's enrolled in the Book Writers Program, and I will address your questions. And I'll stay on that line until all the questions are addressed. And if you can't get on that group call twice a month, you can submit your questions and get them answered, because we're going to record the calls. So there's no question that you can't get answered. But I've been doing this a long time, so I know what you're looking for, and it's pretty much in the content of the program. Now, I created the Book Writers Program, which is 12 lessons, but there's also a 21-day author program, more bite-sized lessons. If you want to go through it right away, you can. We also have a private Facebook group where all the authors and all the people that are registered in the Book Writers Program can interact. So why is that valuable? Well, people love to network. People love to mastermind with others. This is where relationships are built. This is where friendship starts. This is a great place to get support when you launch your book. This is a great place for you to get endorsements when you complete your book. So many ways that you can benefit from that. But as you've heard me say, 95% is the promotion of the book. So we dive deep into how do you actually promote that book. Well, I've got 21 days, lessons, multiple ways. I also include the publicity secrets, how to get booked on national publicity, any publicity, how do you conduct yourself during interviews. And then, since I love helping people make money, if making money is something you love to do, the 21-day revenue program is also a part of it. And all of this, all of the content, everything that I'm sharing with you is essentially what I've done to build my multi-million-dollar business. And you can have access to it. We won't shut it down. There's no time frame. You don't have to start tomorrow, and you won't have to be finished by January 15th. You can keep it going as long as you want. So it includes 12 lessons on the Book Writers Program, the live Q&A calls twice a month, which will go on well into 2018, your private Facebook group, the 21-day author program, how to write your book in bite-sized chunks, 28-day promotion program, how to promote your book, and the money earning part of it, the 21-day revenue program. And the value is well over $13,000, but this program is only $3,750. $3,750. That's what the investment is. Now, time and money seems to be the biggest objections that people have, and that's why I believe now is the time. Think about what I've shared with you in these examples of how, like I remember when I launched my first book, in 48 hours, I did around $38,000 in revenue. The second time I launched a book, it was $48,000 in revenue. I've received over 6 figures in advances. I've generated millions and millions of dollars by marketing online. Money should never be an objection. Time, it's like, when would you love to have this start working for you? Now. Here's an author that I started working with this year. And she said that, she's seen me speak at events. She saw me, make and help many, many authors become bestsellers. And she thought she wanted to do a book. We started working together. She made a decision in January. We started working together right away. Again, it was private mentoring. And within a very short period of time, she had her book done, she had her book released, and made it a bestseller. And she simply didn't know what to do. But knowing what to do should never be the thing that stops you. Now is the time, because I can show you exactly what you need to do. Now, I believe you can't afford not to have a book. What's it going to cost you not to have your book? Like, people don't understand the value of that credibility builder. It can help you in so many ways, in business and in your life. Now, this program that I have, I limit the number of spots that are available. We actually did a promotion just very, very recently, and a large majority of the spots were already taken up, but we do have a few remaining. There's 27. So if you are interested, you feel inclined, you can head over to thebook.writingprogram.com. You've got the link there. Go to the book writing program and you can get instant access. Now, since you're on here, I love rewarding people for showing up. I'm doing a 2-day live event in Sarasota, Florida in January. And as a result, it's a $2,000 event. When you sign up today, if you get yourself enrolled before midnight, you just go to thebook.writingprogram.com, you enroll, get signed up, and I'm going to give you a ticket to that $2,000 event. And the Prosperous Author is all about creating prosperity as an author. That's what that event is all about. So if you're looking for some lasting change of your paradigm so you can finally achieve earning the kind of money that you absolutely deserve, you'd like to leave your legacy, then you're going to need repeated exposure to these concepts. And you're going to need accountability as well. So that's why I've created the Book Writers Program. So you can head on over here to the Book Writers Program. Let me just open this up so you can see it here. The Book Writers Program. And you can just check it out. If you feel inclined, you just go there right now. There's a little video from my good friend Bob Proctor. You can check it out and you can get yourself signed up. Now, in the meantime, let's stop the screen sharing there. Okay, good stuff. Now, let's see. How do we get the little... Good. All right. I'm not even sure if you guys can see me, but let me go over here and I'll be able to tell if you can or not. Okay, hang on, guys. I'm just going to check something here and then I'm going to be right over with you. All right, yes, right on that page, I see there is a, there we go. Right on the page where you are right now, there is a get signed up. Let's just move it. There we are. All right, you can click on the link, check it out. Now I want to see, does anyone have any questions? I see Tammy has some comments here. All right, great. I've refreshed the screen. It states the video is restricted. Uh-oh. I clicked on the link. When do you do this again? Okay, so it looks like steinerstone@gmail.com wasn't able to watch the video. So what I'll do is I will send you the link to the replay. The same page where you actually watch, if you want to go back and you want to watch this presentation again, you can actually go back to the exact same page and you will be able to see the webinar right there if you want to watch it again. All right, great. What's your granddaughter's name, Tammy? You said that's my granddaughter's name. What's your granddaughter's name? I know you typed that while I was presenting, so I didn't see it. Does anyone have any questions for me right now while you're here right now? I can answer any questions that you may have. All right. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions that are coming through. Not even sure if my video's on right now. Oh, there we go. Somebody typed something in. Let's go back over here. How long is the program? All right, so guest 9254, how long is the program? Well, the program is going to be available to you online. So there are 12 classes in the book writers program. So that's really the deep dive into the writing part of it. There's 12 classes. There's also these short classes, sort of bite-sized content for 21-day author, 21-day promotion, 21-day revenue. And the majority of the classes are already up and available to you online. So there's a lot of content. Oh, Stella, cute. So there's a lot of content that's there, a lot of content that you can go through. So how long it takes for you to go through the program, you could actually go through it. You could start working on it today, and you'll have everything you need to get working on the program by going through the first 6 lessons. And I'm still teaching the classes live. I'll be teaching them until the end of the year, but it's an online program that you can access at any time. And then we're going to keep the open Q&A classes. All right, makes sense. So how long it takes for you to go through it is really up to you, how much time you want to devote to it. What I find a lot of people do is, you know, if you have a job or you're working as well, then you can do this in your spare time or your part-time. Or if you're ready to just dive straight in, you can start working on it right away without having to wait. All right, great. Oh, wonderful, Tammy. Thank you very much for sharing that. And Stella is the cutest name for your granddaughter. I love that. Okay, all right. Well, it doesn't look like there are any other questions right now, so we're going to call it a wrap. I appreciate, yes, I answered that question, Tammy. I appreciate you guys for being here. My pleasure to serve you. And if you choose to work with me, that would be great. You can get yourself registered right away, and we're going to start working together right away. How many live online classes do we get to participate in? The program's really been designed to be more of an online program. So where you're going to have access live classes, it is twice a month when we do our open Q&A calls. So there are still 6 more live classes, and then there's open Q&A calls twice a month. How do you know what time of book you want to write? What type of book? Yeah, you know, people usually write books based on their own interests, what they're interested in. It might be sometimes an experience that they've had or wisdom that they have, or it could be they could write just something that like a subject area that they're interested in writing about. Yes, Tammy says, do you go over how to get a real publisher for your book in this program? Absolutely. I do an entire class on that. Sure do. All right, guys. Well, good to be here with you. I wish you all the success in the world. Hope I get to work together. And thanks for having me. Do you suggest writing every day, says guest 6096. You know, I suggest, here's what I did. I actually talk about this in the class. I talk about writing disciplines. What I did when I was working on a book on a regular basis, rather than just sitting down and writing it in a weekend, is I wrote every morning just for about an hour and a half between Monday and Friday. So if you like your weekends, which I do, and you love investing quality time with your family, which I do, then you may want to create a writing discipline that really works with your schedule and your lifestyle. So writing every day, sure, if you're willing to commit to doing that. But I suggest Monday through Friday, and then enjoy your weekends with your family. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye for now.